Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rock and Roll. Alright, this time let's do this without the audio glitches. I've already recorded this show once, so we're doing it again. Because I forgot about audio stuff. Okay, so before we begin, first of all, this show is being brought to you by my attempt to raise money for the American Diabetes Association through this link up here, through the Tour de Cure. We'll talk more about this later, but I'm not only a member, but I'm also somebody who would really like to see diabetes get wiped off the planet. All right? Okay. So, first of all, my apologies. This show is about 2 weeks late. And the reason for that is, well, not for public consumption. But suffice to say that hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully this problem has been solved. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. It's done. So we'll see what happens with that. If there's going to be another delay, I would highly recommend you go to the website, which is riverottercycling.club, and then look on the live stream link, or look on the podcast link, I should say, and hopefully we'll find out there. I also do apologize. I'm a little distracted because I'm looking at Twitter, keeping an eye on the Cubs game, which is going on right now. Nothing like a Cubs game. All right, so the new format. Maybe I should mention that. So those of you who are watching this on YouTube, and those of you who have gone to the podcast link and looking for the audio, you might notice a little bit of a change, which is, well, this. I'll work on the framing of this later on, but yeah, I'm trying to shave some steps on my end because I really didn't like how labor intensive it was to record to wave, extract as an MP3, add the video file when I can just throw it all into one screen, make one video in one shot radio style, and just go for it. So let me know what you think. If you like it, let me know. If you don't like it, please let me know. Feedback is good. That's what I'm getting at here. Okay, so, and you also get to see what I'm drinking. Every time there's a pause. It's this stuff. It's the vitamin stuff. It's good stuff. I like it. Hashtag brand ambassador. Okay, so when I was, a couple weeks ago, I was talking about, let's talk about bike touring. And bike touring in itself could be a lot of episodes. But the more I thought about it, well, let's start basic. Let's start small. Let's get people out there and trying it out. Because when most people think of bike touring, a lot of people you think about, I always have to think of you think of this. You think of what I was out there touring with about a year and change ago. And she's a good rig. I like this rig. But you look at that and you're like, wow, I could never do anything that epic. I really, and a lot of people said that to me. Let me show you this. And this is one of the things I'm going to have to work on with this format. Here we are. That's a picture taken on the first time I ever tried to do a bike tour. And that's my cyclocross bike. Those are backpacks being used as panniers. That's on a bike rack. And you can kind of see if I didn't want that picture. Not yet. There we are. If you take a look, those are right underneath the handlebars there. That's several just soda bottles filled with water. This wasn't the most glamorous way to do a bike tour, but it worked. And one of these days I want to do a video of 7 things I wish I would have known before I went, and all that. But one of the things that I should have done, and actually I did it right because this was just an overnighter. It was just doing an overnighter. Instead of jumping in both feet, you can kind of test the waters a little bit by just doing a one-night ride. And looking back, there are different ways that I would have done it, and that's what this episode is. The idea of this episode is I want you to feel comfortable. I want to get you comfortable enough so that you could literally this weekend do an overnighter. And you won't have to buy anything that you probably don't already have, and you won't need to load down your bike or anything like that. You can literally do an overnighter with just a bicycle and a backpack, and that's it. And you could have a really, really nice weekend. That's the goal. That's what we're going for here. So, what do you need to do? What do you need to pull one of these off? Well, let me kind of. There it is. So we're going to keep this up here because that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. What do you absolutely just bare minimum need? Well, you need a bicycle. Any type of bicycle will do. That is actually, like I said, that's a cyclocross bicycle. Not necessarily a road machine. But it worked, and it worked very nicely. You could do the same thing if you've got just a town cruiser. If you've got a beach bicycle. If you've got a mountain bike. You can have a nice weekender. And you can take the whole family with you. You also probably need a bike lock. A bike lock is going to be a way that you can go into a restaurant, do things like that. Although not always, but there's exceptions. We'll get to that. And then you're going to need a backpack. A normal school-style backpack will be perfect because all you're putting into it is one maybe two sets of extra clothing, your toiletry kit, and an electronics kit. Electronics kit, that's what I was just reaching for down here. Here we go. This is my electronics kit. This is everything that I need to power and use any electronics that I'm taking with me. So I've got USB cords for all the stuff that I need, and then I have this here that plugs into a wall outlet, and then I can just charge anything from there. And there's also a set of headphones in here so that I can privately listen to music off of my phone. That's it. Really simple stuff. Other stuff that's nice to have. Helmets. You can kind of see mine right back up there. Going back to the first show, I'm not going to force you to wear a helmet. I will highly recommend it, but you don't have to. I just find it really, really useful. Water bottles. You can kind of see on the bike down, always bad at this. On the bike down here, you'll see that I've got a couple of bike-specific water bottles, but you don't need to have bike-specific water bottles. Cycling hack. A water bottle cage like that, or if you have an aluminum cage that fits on the bike, you can go to almost any store, any convenience store, and you can purchase a 1 liter bottle of water. It'll fit beautifully inside of one of those water cages down there. It's a really, it's just one of those things that nobody talks to you about. And if you want to carry more water with you, which I highly recommend, if you have a normal school-style backpack, you're going to have multiple pockets on it, usually. So you can throw a 1 liter bottle in that. Done. You don't need to buy anything spare. You don't have to buy anything extra. You can just do it that way. What else is kind of nice to have? Carry cash. Don't carry, if you're in America, we live on the credit card. But if you carry cash, it's accepted just about everywhere. So have enough cash on you that you're comfortable, but not so much that you'd be hurting if you got mugged. It's a horrible way to put it, but we're going to go with it. Radio, everybody. So, how do you plan a basic overnighter? Well, let's see here. I'll tell you how I would do it, and then you can kind of adapt it for your needs. First thing, you want to plan about 30 or 50 miles of travel in one day. Now, that sounds like a lot. I'll be the first to tell you that. Yeah, it sounds massive. But my usual workout run is 30 miles, and that takes me 2 hours and change to do. You're not going to be moving at that speed. You're probably going to be going more of a casual touring pace. If you think about it, if you're on a bicycle moving at a relatively easy pace, it's going to be somewhere between 8 and 10 miles an hour. We're going to go to 10 just to make the math a little bit easier. So if you figure 10 miles every hour, and then you tack on, let's say, tack on like about another 45 minutes as just general goofing around time, as in like you're going to stop and get something to eat on the way there, or you're going to stop to admire some of the scenery and things like that. Tack on a little more than 45 minutes, but yeah, I mean, 30 to 50 miles in one day is very reasonable and very doable because you're not going flat out the entire time. Keep that in mind here. So what's within 30 to 50 miles of you? And that's going to vary from person to person, but there's a lot. And here's where things are going to get a little bit strange for some people, because we're not camping. We are touring. We are not camping. So you don't need to have a tent. You don't need to find campgrounds. You don't need to have any of that stuff. What we're looking for are things like hotels. Any kind of a hotel is good. I remember on my tour ride, I was staying in... There was one night that I stayed in this cabin. There was another night that I actually stayed in this little no-tell motel, which was probably the best place in that town, come to think of it. It varies, and kind of depends on how much you want to spend. B&Bs, bed and breakfasts. You would be surprised how many B&Bs there are out there. If you just do a basic search online for them, you'll find a heck of a lot of B&Bs. And a lot of them are going to be within 30 miles of where you're sitting right now. This also includes things like Airbnb. I've never used Airbnb, so I'm not going to vouch for them. But yeah, we can. It's worth a look. It's worth looking. Hostels. This is something that you don't see a lot of in America. You see this mostly overseas. But I know that because I did some looking into it. From where I'm sitting right now, there are about 3 hostels that were within my 30 to 60 mile radius. They're not terribly bike friendly though. And what I mean by that is that they just don't know what to do with a bicycle. Actually, come to think of it, it's a good time to mention that. When you're looking at some place to stay, you want to do the homework and call them, email them, whatever's better for you, and ask them, hey, is it okay to keep a bicycle in the room with me? 90% of the time, they're cool with it. It's that extra 10% that you're never quite sure about. So call, phone, do whatever you can. Just make sure it's cool before you get there. Because you don't want to get there and find out suddenly that, oh yeah, we're not going to let you do that. So yeah, that's just a bad thing. Also, family. And this is something that you might not think about, but there might be like cousins or relatives that you haven't seen for a while. They live like an hour away, and you're like, I don't want to go because it's dead. But this is a good time. This is a really good opportunity to go hang out with them. It's also really, you get a heck of a story to tell over dinner. I'll tell you that. Again, we're not camping. So in this setup in the picture you see here, I was carrying a sleeping bag, a tent, a pad, all the camping supplies, and I had clothing and water and all that. Food was in there too. You don't have to carry all that stuff, specifically because we're not camping. We're just touring. And here's where I wanted to talk a little bit about snobbery, because you hear it. You hear it. There are some people who are just like, if you're not camping out, if you're not just throwing your tent down and camping out next to the side of the road and roughing it the entire time, you're not really a tourer. You're not bike touring. You're not bike camping. If people give you that kind of an attitude, thank them for their time, walk away, because you just don't need that negativity in your life. You want to have fun, and suffering isn't fun. So there's nothing wrong. There's no specific book rules saying that you have to go camping on a bicycle. You don't have to, so don't. And actually, it kind of goes into planning. What do you take with you? One of the things that I learned on my bike tour is that there's no hard and fast rule. There is no dress code. The dress code is, what do you feel comfortable wearing? Now, in my case, when I was doing my bike tour, I was wearing tech shirts. I was wearing mountain bike pants over, or mountain bike shorts, I should say, over cycling shorts for for everybody else's sake. And let's see, I was wearing bandanas and all that other stuff. Wear what you want. I mean, if you want to wear cycling clothing, that's great. Please do. I would recommend a pair of cycling shorts if you don't already have them. They make cycling so much better. But you want to wear a pair of sweatpants and go for a weekender, go for it. You want to go the full Lycra route, do it. You want to go mountain bike route, do that. Wear what's comfortable. I'm just saying, don't go naked. I highly recommend not being naked. There's laws. Yeah. So, let's see here. Other things that you want to take with you. I mentioned the toiletry kit and the electronics kit. If you have anything specific to you, take it. And actually, maybe I should also mention this too. Power banks. Having a spare power bank is not a bad thing, especially if you're carrying an electronics kit, because phones die, and if you have one of these things, you can at least get a call out. So, very, very handy stuff. Let's talk about planning. How do you plan? How do you route for a bike tour? We're not doing anything really cross-country here, so you don't have to go that route. When I say that route, when I did my tour ride, I went through the Adventure Cycling Association. I think it is what it is. Yeah, and they sell maps that go from one end of the country to the other. You don't have to be that drastic, because we're just doing 30 miles, 40 miles in a day. Google Maps is actually a really good resource. It's not the end-all be-all. You're going to have some problems with Google Maps. I've had some times where it tries to route me around a problem that doesn't exist, or it wants you to go half a mile out of your way so that you can go across the street. So you can lean on it, but don't rely on it. Use your head. There's also a service called Ride with GPS. And if you have one of these... What fell? Nothing fell. If you have one of these things, Ride with GPS is a great resource. I think you can also send the maps to your phone. I've never done that, but I think you can. You probably don't have a cycling computer if you're watching a show like this. If you do, Ride with GPS is a great resource, and then they'll actually tell you how to upload your map to the phone, because you can basically route maps using their service and then use them like this. But again, use your head as you're doing your mapping, because again, Ride with GPS has literally routed me half a mile to get around a roundabout, because Ride with GPS did not like me doing a roundabout, and I don't know why. Let's see here. Here we go. If you do go one of these routes, I would highly recommend printing out your route. Having a physical printout with a physical map sure beats having your phone die. It beats being out of cell service. And you might be saying, well, what if it gets wet? Well, that's why you have one of these things. Obviously, you want to get the larger gallon size bags for printouts. But one of these, if you just zip the top of it, it's waterproof. Mostly, I mean, it's not going to be very resilient, but it is going to be waterproof. And I've used one of these things to keep paper dry. It's fantastic. And you probably already have some in your home anyway. So, I would highly recommend having a paper map. Worst case scenario, a lot of gas stations have maps in them. And don't ask for directions from the gas people because they're not used to cyclists. They're used to cars. And you can ride on the highway. If you've never ridden on the highway before, it can be an exhilarating experience. That's what we'll call it. But yeah, it's a good way to go. I should mention this too. Be prepared. Be prepared to wing it. I've had times where my map will tell me to go from here to here, and there's a detour. Or there's just no way that the map is right. That happens. That's part of the story you're going to tell later. So be prepared to just wing it on the fly, because you're going to have to. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. It's not all going to work flawlessly, and that's okay. Roll with it. Let's see here. Things not to plan. Things to not plan. Do not plan your food stops. And that sounds a little counterintuitive. But if you're doing a 50-mile day, let's say, or you're doing 50 or 60 miles, and you're thinking, and you have it on paper that, okay, so at this mile marker, we're going to stop at this restaurant, and we're going to eat here, and it's going to take us exactly this much time, and we're going to get back on the road, and we'll be there. Just stop. Stop. You're stressing yourself out unnecessarily. You don't know on the day if at that mile marker you're going to be hungry. You don't know if on the day everybody in your party is going to be like, hey, we're good. We're fine. Maybe just like a snack and we're fine. You don't know. You can't plan that. So don't. The exception to this is if you're going to be really out in the boonies. But the one thing that I found on my tour ride is that if you are in basic civilization, there are 3 things that you will find in almost every basic civilization. You will always find a Walmart, you will always find a McDonald's, and you will always find a convenience store that can also double as a supermarket. Almost everywhere you go. You got to push really far out to not find those things, and I did that on my tour ride, but you're probably not going to do it on a ride like this. This is, of course, why you want to Google recon your entire route beforehand, because if you know, oh, hey, in 7 miles, we're going to get to another town, you can wait. I mean, you're not hungry now. You might be hungry in 7 miles. You might be hungry in 10 miles. You don't know. Don't plan for it. Just roll with it. And actually, you find so much cool stuff by just rolling with it. There's I mean, you'll come around a corner and you're like, hey, well, I wish I had this picture up. I'm not going to do it right now, but when I was doing the road trip, somebody had told me that there was a really cool place to eat just over the border when you go from Idaho to Montana. And I was like, cool, okay, yeah, but when you get out there, there's nothing there. I mean, we're in the middle of the boonies. And sure enough, I get across the border to Montana, about another 5 miles into the border, delicatessen. Middle of nowhere, a delicatessen. I hadn't really planned on it, but, just roll with it. It's part of the adventure. It's part of what makes it what it is. And that's part of the fun. So just go with it. That's the whole thing. Enjoy your ride. I think that's the big takeaway here, is that if you're just doing a weekender, you're leaving on a Saturday morning, you're going to be back home Sunday night, you're just going to overnight someplace, enjoy the ride. That's the whole purpose of going out on the road anyway, because you could just jump in your car, you could drive half an hour, stay at a hotel, and then come home. That's cool, but that's just going to a destination and back. This is enjoying the journey there. This is about finding all those small things that in your car you wouldn't see because you're going to blow past it so fast. Enjoy the ride. That's the big thing about this. And that's really that's the main reason I want to get people involved, and I want people to try a weekender. because you'll be surprised. You would be surprised how much you don't know about your surrounding area because you just fly past it so fast in your car. Okay, so I think that covers a weekender. Sometime down the road, I would like to do something a little more involved. Like I said, I can see doing a 7 things list or a 10 things list of things that I wish I would have known. Or a so you've never gone tour riding before kind of thing. There's a lot of people who can do it better than I can. But, what the heck? Let's give it a whirl. Let's call it a show with this. I have no idea how the time on this because I don't have a timer anymore. But if you like the show, and this is kind of where we're going to tie back to that right there. So, in July of next year, there's an event that's taking place just outside of Boston. It is called the New England Classic. It's a 7-day ride that I want to do, and it benefits the American Diabetes Association through something called the Tour de Cure. The Tour de Cure raises money for diabetes research, diabetes education, and things like that. And as a type 2 diabetic, let me tell you, diabetes sucks. So anything that I can do to help fight that is what I'm going for. So if you like the show, hit up this link and donate a little bit to the American Diabetes Association using that link, and that'll help me out. Also, maybe share the show. And also, what do you think of the format? What do you think of this setup? I'm going to work on the layout. This was just kind of thrown together because I'm doing this very fast and loose. So leave a comment down below. And if you liked it, hit the like button. All the other stuff that YouTubers are supposed to say. Anyhow, I think we'll call it a show at that. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Hope to see you out there this weekend. Enjoy your ride, everybody. I'll wait for the last part.